Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network.
We've got a double bill lined up for you today. Rehearsals we are at for the Island Consort Chamber Choir and the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra.
A foundation in coal. Does she have what it takes to be a daycare worker, and where it all began? The first episode of Clocked. That and more in the next 30 minutes.
You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4, and yes, we are doubling up on two somewhat related but completely separate concerts coming up. One, Horns of Plenty from the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra, and one, The High Art of Singing from the Island Consort Chamber Choir. We're going to learn more about classical and Baroque and French horns than you ever thought possible in a 30-minute magazine show. But we're starting out with a story from Rayanne LaPlante. We take a look at the history of an industry that founded Nanaimo and then the opportunities that we have today to celebrate our coal mining history here in the Harbor City. Bruce Farquharson is the director of the Island Consort Chamber Choir, and that's one of the two concerts that we're talking about today on this edition of Go Island, the High Art of Singing. It's a pretty high standard to set for yourself for the name of a concert taking place December 1st.
It sounds highfalutin, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Now, tell me a bit about the caliber of singing that the Consort Chamber Choir is striving for, and how do you actually achieve that benchmark that you're setting for yourself?
Well, first of all, it's an audition choir, and the people that I have gathered, there are now 21 of us, are all very good singers, experienced singers. They read music, and 3 of them, in fact, are choir directors themselves.
On the flip side, audience members who are thinking about coming out or are coming out on December 1st, 7:30, Brecon United Church in Nanaimo, the High Art of Singing. What can we expect from that performance?
Well, we follow the progression of time. We start with Baroque and early music. We're going to have, as a sort of centerpiece of the first half, is going to be a strings accompanied work by the Danish-German composer Buxtehude, which involves 6 soloists from the choir, 4 strings from the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra, and an organ.
The High Art of Singing will be performed by the Island Consort Chamber Choir on Sunday, December the 1st. It is an afternoon performance. I did mention 7:30 earlier. That's incorrect. The concert takes place 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, December the 1st at Brecon United Church. We'll be back with more Horns of Plenty, in fact, after a short break.
Still to come today on Go, the most challenging job of all for Melanie. Matt Carter has our Mariner Minute, and On the Clock, almost retro. That and more still to come today on Go.
Did you know that in the olden days, when they were referring to upstage and downstage, it was quite literally that the stage was on a ramp. So downstage, which is closer to the audience, was actually lower than the people upstage. So when you were blocking people that were back, you could see them out from behind the people who were in front.
And we know that you're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. I'm Kate Bergen, throwing things over to Melanie Leitner, formerly Melanie Panetta. She is trying her hand as a daycare worker in this next installment of Sprott Shaw Community College's Higher Learning. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. Horns of Plenty coming to Brecon United Church on November the 23rd, moving out to St. Edmunds in Parksville on the 24th. And the music director of the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra is Carl Rayner. Who are these guys and what are they doing?
This is Andrew Clark and Heather Walker, and they are giving us a great time with the orchestra. They're playing 2 French horn concertos for 2 French horns. So 1 admission, 4 horns. It's just 2 people.
And it's quite unusual, isn't it, to put two instruments solo in a concerto?
Well, one of the neat things about this job is I always find out new things. And it turns out that all of these horn concertos way back when, before the horn got all its modern shape, they were usually written for two horns. So we never hear them these days, but that used to be the norm.
Okay.
So, hey, learn something new every day.
Now, for people such as myself who are a little bit outside of this world of music, you'd think that after all these hundreds of years, everything left to be discovered has been discovered.
We've forgotten a lot of things.
But that's not true at all.
We've forgotten an awful lot of things too. So this is music that was like really popular stuff. Telemann was just a fantastically popular composer. This guy wrote more music than Mozart, Beethoven, and Bach all put together. And kind of his name has fallen off the cliff a little bit. So we get the Telemann concerto, and then we get Mozart's dad, who wrote a two-horn concerto. So it's a lot of fun. We're having a great time with them, and there's kind of three things that we really love about this. One, we get to have two soloists who are world-class soloists, but living in the community, which is great, and they're really supporting sort of the community music, community orchestra stuff. They're playing these wonderful pieces, and they're loud. We don't have to worry about being really quiet for a guitar soloist or a flute soloist or something like that. So we've got a big, robust sound in the soloist, and we can kind of beef up our strings a little bit, do the same thing.
Thanks, Carl. They were saying that the other half is missing. The other 25 members of the orchestra are missing. We're going to stop talking about these fine musicians in the third person and actually talk to them in person later on this edition of Go Island. But first, something new to us here on a weekly basis. Matt Carter is no stranger to our channel and no stranger to VIU athletics either. He's been hosting a web series called Mariner Minutes for a couple of months now on YouTube, and we're bringing it out of cyberspace onto the airwaves. Here's Matt Carter with a VIU Mariners Minute, and don't mind the fuzzy face that he's got going on there. Yes, there is no shortage of cheese when it comes to Matt Carter, but that's why we love him. Mariners Minute, now a regular Wednesday feature right here on Go Island. We'll be back with more after a short break. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. Horns Aplenty from the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra on November 23rd and 24th. We've told you about that lots, and we'll tell you about it again before this show is up. Andrew Clark is one of two soloists with the upcoming concert and the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra. You're also both with the Vancouver Island Symphony. Why were, back in the day, a couple hundred years ago, why was music written for two horns instead of one like it is today?
So in those days, the instruments were much more simple. You wouldn't see all of the additional tubing on the front of a horn like you see there, and no buttons like here to divert the air into the different tubes or anything like that. The horn was basically stuck in one key, and so the notes were rather more limited, and so the players would only play those notes that were available just on a single piece of tube. The great thing about having two players when you have such a limitation is that you can actually make harmony, and one player can specialize in the low register and the other player can specialize in the high register. This means that Heather has to do a lot of leaping around on the low notes of the instrument, whereas my notes are much more close together in the upper register. So I get to do the trills by and large, and she gets to do the arpeggios and the big jumps up and down.
Is it more challenging?
It is kind of challenging.
To manipulate the instrument that way, if that's an okay way to say it?
Oh, well, it's much easier with the valves, and we're glad that we've got the valves to help us.
We're going to throw things over now to another look at our very first ever edition of Clocked. It's where it all started back on January the 30th. Todd Jones and Derek Johnstone on their first ever adventure on the clock. They started on a winning streak back in January, and it's safe to say they have maintained that winning streak ever since. Hard to believe it's been almost a year. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. The High Art of Singing from the Island Consort Chamber Choir takes place Sunday, December 1st, 2:30 in the afternoon at Brecon United Church. And Bruce failed to mention that he is debuting a piece that he wrote. It's a song called Kyria. and it's about the seagulls crying over the water. Horns Aplenty from the Nanaimo Chamber Orchestra takes place on November the 23rd. That's a Saturday, 7:30 at Brecon United Church, and then they move up to Parksville on the 24th, 2:30 in the afternoon at St. Edmund's Church, as I mentioned, in Parksville. Lots of information, double bill today. Try to make it out to both. Thanks for watching this edition of Go Island. We'll see you next time.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network. Clothing supplied by Catwalk Fashions. Kate's Hair and Aesthetics provided by Matteo Salon.